Hello, love. Welcome to the Shy Love Radio Show, Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio, and Spotify Premium. It's your girl, Melanie Hogan. Before we start with the segment for today, let's take 3 deep breaths so that we can bring ourselves into the present, not think about anything before, not think about what is to come. We'll take 3 deep breaths. Please hold for 3 seconds before you exhale. Thank you. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you all recall, back in the springtime, Governor Pritzker said that he had concern for the following fall due to the pandemic. And there was a concern about an uptick and a second wave of COVID cases. So originally, during the summertime, it was predicted that the numbers would actually go down and that something about the heat would help to control the virus. That predicament was not accurate because we are seeing the cases rise and have been seeing the cases rise all throughout the summer. So now that we're coming into the fall season, there is a fear that the flu season could make the pandemic worse. The symptoms between the coronavirus, a simple cold, a flu, pneumonia, it seems like they all go hand in hand. So by simply having this virus out here and then catching a cold or catching a flu or catching pneumonia is going to actually make the situation worse. So the Illinois Department of Public Health adds suburban Cook County to a list of 29 other counties at a warning level for the virus. Many places in Illinois are seeing some surges of COVID. We have the commissioner of the Chicago Department of Public Health who recommends that residents continue to wear masks, practice social distancing, and exercise caution, even with close family and friends, which is where COVID-19 has been spreading the most. Now that makes more sense. That of course, you're more apt to get it from somebody that you reside with or spend a lot of time with. You know, wherever you go, whatever germs you're picking up, you're bringing it back home. We need to sterilize, we need to wear the mask, but even with doing that, you know, you have research that's saying that it is in the aerosol and it is in the air. So just do the best that you can to keep yourself protected as well as your loved ones. In Chicago, cases have been rising with more than 300 cases reported each day. If that number exceeds 400, the city will implement new restrictions based on data where the virus is spreading. This could go back to limiting the sizes of the gatherings that we have here. Now, the goal is not to have to take the major step backwards into a shelter in place. We all had to endure the shelter in place. That's why we have more mental health resources that's coming out now, because this pandemic is causing all type of trauma and anxiety and depression, fatigue. So the city is saying that they don't want to shut everything back down. They see how that affected the people originally. So They're just simply asking people to do the right thing. A lot of people have this idealism of themselves where they are a good person, but the actions don't line up with you being that good of a person. And nobody is perfect. But in a case where we are battling this coronavirus and trying to avoid it, you can exhibit good person characteristics by simply being mindful, following the rules, and trying your best not to become a carrier of it or spread it to one of your loved ones. So they're saying that they don't want to do it, but if the cases continue to rise, they will be forced to shut us back down. And then we will hear everybody with the belly aches about how they feel about the situation. But did you do anything to try to help the situation? What did you do? What are you doing as a member of society during this pandemic to try to help stop the spread of it? What role are you playing in that manner? So think about that before you start with the belly aching. Because a lot of things don't have to happen the way that they're happening. Our choices help to determine a lot of our next steps. Our choices and our decisions that we make help to create our future for us. So if we want to get this over with, we got to stop thinking I, start thinking we, and everybody do their part. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office announced that more than 10,000 people have died so far this year, with Black residents accounting for 43% of all deaths. Of the 10,000 fatalities, more than half have been linked to the coronavirus, and roughly 33% of those virus-related deaths have been African American residents. The data is showing more deaths in the Black Chicagoans and more cases in the Latino Chicagoans. So they're seeing more Latino residents of Chicago catch the virus, and they're seeing more African American residents of Chicago die from the virus. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released new testing guidance, saying those without symptoms don't necessarily need to be tested if they have been exposed to the virus. Chicago will continue to test anyone exposed to the virus, even if they are asymptomatic. A lot of people feel like they feel fine. They don't have any symptoms, and yet are being carriers of the virus. So, you're basically walking out of ignorance because logically, if you don't feel sick, you're not thinking that you have the ability to get somebody else sick if you yourself, aren't exhibiting any symptoms. But the way that this virus works, you could simply be a carrier, not have any symptoms, but be infusing that virus into somebody else whose immune system may not be as strong as yours. If someone has been in contact with a person who tests positive, you still need to be quarantined for 14 days, even if they test negative. So one of Trump's top medical advisors, and I want to say hugs to number 45 on the death of his brother, who died a little minute ago, regardless of the politics. When you love someone, it's just hugs. Lose someone that you love, it's hugs for you. So. But anyway, one of his top medical advisors Scott Atlas is encouraging the White House to embrace herd immunity. Okay, so herd immunity is kicking up a lot of controversy because what they're basically saying is let everybody get it. Let most of the population, let this COVID-19 spread through most of the population so that our immune system can quickly build immunity. But they said if they did decide to do something like this, they will protect those in nursing homes and in other vulnerable populations. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that is a good idea at all. Sounds more like population control to me. But there are others who disagree and who say that the right way to get herd immunity is through the vaccine. I don't trust that vaccine either. So just keep going back to the drawing board until we get it right. So to each his own. If you are open to getting a vaccine for the coronavirus, that is your choice and that is your right. And I respect that. Me personally, no. So while you all who are not in Chicago and who are listening, I'm just giving you an update. If you ever want to come and visit this wonderful city of Chicago here, at least you'll be abreast to what is going on. So of course, we have these protesters, and there's been a clash between Black Lives Matter, and Mayor TC Lori Lightfoot and CPD and the residents. It's just been a lot. So originally, we have heard TT Mayor Lightfoot reprimand the police. And then we have heard her praise the police. So I guess she reprimanded and praised in according to the situation and how things, work out. So in this case, there was a protest that devolved into, remember the violent, like they was getting down. You hear the police, the residents, they wanted to smoke and they was creating it, okay? So when all of that happened, of course, everybody comes out with how they feel about the situation, their account on what happened. Elected officials stepped in and they blasted the police for unnecessary aggressive tactics, abuse of power. Those are like two common phrases that we would hear in regard to the police officers, and not just in Chicago, it's like everywhere. So you know how we have the little peaceful demonstrators and they have their chants and just going through the city streets, letting their voices be heard against police brutality. So what they're saying is there are peaceful protesters who have the intent on following the rules set by the city to successfully protest. We're having that establishment become mixed in with strategic looters who are joining the peaceful protest, and then at a certain point, either whether it's provoked by the police or they kick it off first, mayhem just starts to erupt. So depending on who you're talking to, you'll hear some accounts say that, oh, the police started this with us. They became aggressive with us. And you'll hear other accounts say, well, the protesters / looters started to get aggressive first. Thank God for these cameras to help work out the details. And then even with that, sometimes if you don't know what happened before or afterwards, but it does give you some type of additional insight. So a lot of police officers have started to get injured by the residents. And a lot of the police officers are not going. They refuse, although this whole debacle is because of their treatment to the residents. You know, they're like, we're not gonna let y'all just beat on us back. So of course, you know, there's chaos back and forth. Thankfully, I always try to look for the silver lining somewhere. Thankfully, during this melee, nobody got killed. We had some people get injured, but nobody got killed. And seeing that we are here in Chicago, where we're getting killed is like a trend. The fact that it was a resident of Chicago involved with CPD and nobody got killed, Shalom salute. That is progress. And you have to count each step of progress. So Titi said that the agitators have embedded themselves in these seemingly peaceful protests and come for a fight. The Black Lives Matter rep previously stated that she would be wise to understand that the people will keep rising up until CPD is abolished and our Black communities are fully invested in. So, you know, everybody is taking a stand. The mantra for 2020 is enough is enough. People are fighting back. And people are really going up against the machine. So when both sides have stated where they are, and that's their bottom line, and there is no commonality for some type of peace, there will be more chaos. Superintendent David Brown, he said that some in the group were using black umbrellas to make it harder for CPD to see them, pushed officers, and assaulted them. So Cuzzo came out to speak on behalf of the police union, stating how, you know, the residents were using black umbrellas so that they could not be identified. Okay. They weren't using white sheets. They're using black umbrellas. All right. It was another party who was using white sheets to make sure that they wasn't identified. Pushing officers, assaulting them. Wow. Meanwhile, there's a video that backs up what he is saying that shows a person swinging and striking an officer with a skateboard. I actually witnessed that video, and he bopped that man. He bopped that man over the head with that skateboard. You hear me? Hopefully that man did not go straight to sleep after that, but he called it. He definitely called it. A youth activist group called Increase the Peace. Very good, Shailavian. Youth activism, Increase the Peace. Shalom salute. They said that it was peaceful before the police began an all-out assault on the protesters. Now, this is the tricky part. You have a mixture of peaceful protesters and those who came for an actual fight. But they're all mixed up in the same crowd. So how are you to know who is who? So even though you see that there is a threatening situation that may come about, you don't just run in and attack everybody, because as we see, not everybody had the intent of physically trying to go up against the police. So there needs to be a little more patient observation and discernment before you just start to go at a person, you can't. That's just like the police officers. We don't know which ones are good police officers and which ones are corrupt because all y'all in blue. So I guess it's the same mindset when you looking at a whole bunch of angry protesters. You don't know who just coming to holler with their voice and who coming to holler and swing. But there needs to be some type of median to where it's not immediately, you don't go from just 0 to 10. And then always try to de-escalate before you even get into that situation, especially with that amount of people out there. Some people bring their children out there so that they can become part of the activism. At least try to separate the weeds from the flowers, before you set it off. So, these marches are basically because we as a people are tired of the abuse of power. We as a people are tired of constantly seeing targets on the backs of African Americans. And then here in Inglewood, yes, the reputation has improved, but it still has its reputation nevertheless. And in certain neighborhoods where there is an increase of violence, sometimes the officers just come in gung-ho because this area is known for recklessness. But you got to understand that just because a person is living in that area does not mean that they are a part of the negativity of that environment. There are a lot of people in Inglewood, Chicago, who are on the build-up side of life, the build-up side of the community. So we do need to start to separate the weeds from the flowers. And we had now this is the issue here. After the George Floyd incident, TC said that it was like mandatory for these officers to have their body cams on. In this case, when CPD shot 20-year-old Latrell Allen, they didn't have their body cams on. Thankfully, his stuff didn't die. Of course, it's their word against his. CPD is saying that he shot at officers during a foot chase. This boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and 1 count of unlawful use of a weapon. Instead of having footage from the body cam, the police post a photo of a gun that they said they found on the scene. Y'all surrounded by guns. How do we know that gun came off this boy? Could you match some prints? Show us his fingerprints and then show us his prints on that gun in a position to where he was holding it to aim and fire. Could we do that? Who cares about a photo of a gun? Y'all, police, you got guns. You got access to all type of guns, all type of artillery. So a photo is not just making everybody calm down by saying, oh, they say he had a gun. Especially when we know that guns and drugs and everything be planted on these kids all the time. But at the same time, we know that these kids have the drugs and the guns. It's a ridiculous situation. So this baby got shot, right? And still got to go to jail. And still charged with 2 counts of attempted murder and 1 count. Like, Jesus, that's a lot. He got shot. These are straight felonies that he getting charged with. And more than likely, he's going to go sit down at 20 years old. His family and a neighbor disputes the narrative that the police give. His mom said that he tried to give up running before he was shot by the police and that he didn't have a gun. So, they say, well, if you're not guilty, then why would you run? Because a lot of boys wasn't guilty, did not run, and got a case put on them. Because a lot of residents did not run and caught all type of bullets to the body. It's not like you all come across as fair and just people. You need to keep that in consideration. Yes, they act like little tough little savages, but apparently this little boy was by himself. He's seeing police. I don't know what this little self was doing, if he was doing something right or doing something wrong, but nevertheless, the fear of the police is out there. People just don't want to. Don't question me. I don't come across my lane. So if the police this way, they're going that way. So people are not always running just because they're guilty. So, and then of course, when people hear stories, social media is a huge platform to get the word out. And someone posted that the victim was 15 and not 20, and he was shot 15 times and killed. Of course, that's going to enrage the public. We became enraged at George Floyd's death, and he wasn't even living here in Chicago. So what reaction do you expect them to have when it's one of our own? And people just state what the facts is. You don't have to add anything to it or take anything else to make the story juicier. Let the truth set you free. And it doesn't matter that this boy was 20 years old and not 15 years old, okay? It doesn't matter. The fact is that it happened. And I personally would like to see more of active de-escalation techniques being used on the street. I would like to see the officers go through a number of steps before it gets to the point where they are pulling their weapon. So, and then check this out. This how what you stand for will be used against you. The residents like, we want to smoke. Y'all not doing right. We're tired of this. We finna fight back, right? So then CPD like, well, what's to it then? That's the type of energy that they're giving off, right? And then when y'all get down and get on the level with the residents, you know what they're saying? Y'all the trained officers, y'all was supposed to de-escalate the situation. I know that I was mad and pissed off, but see, you a trained officer. You were supposed to de-escalate the situation, not join me, mother. You the trained one. You're the one who is supposed to be at a level of authority. So you got these witnesses who you coming into contact with saying, the officer didn't even give me a chance to go in. They went in before me. Or as soon as I turned up, they got on there right with me. There should be steps that should be taken before you engage in fire on fire, a smoke versus smoke with the resident. It's just like a reprimand. There should be steps that should be taken that somebody should be able to point out and say, well, yeah, I know that it did get to that point, but the police officer tried to talk to this young man. The police officer said, I understand that you might be scared, but we just coming to make sure everything is all right. We received the call. We just want to make sure that you're not out here scaring the rest of the residents out here. It has to be some type of technique, some type of method that needs to be used to where a witness could point out and say the officer tried to de-escalate the situation. We saw, we had it on tape where the officer tried to de-escalate the situation before he had to lay him down. That's the least you could do. So we got COPA, who is the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. They are the ones who put out the info saying that the officers were not wearing the body cameras. So the officers' excuse is that they responded to a call of a person with a gun in the 5700 block of South Racine, and Allen ran off when the officers tried to confront him. I know that there are still residents who are participating with the police, who are calling on the police to do their job because they don't want to go out and do the community policing. And yes, it is their job, but I don't really believe that the officers are getting as many calls as they're saying that they're getting. I think that sometimes that is just the excuse that is being used so that they can justify stopping somebody and pulling them over. So they are saying that, he ran off when they tried to confront him. They said that he ran off when they tried to confront him. So earlier in the report it said CPD said Allen shot at officers during a foot chase. So was he running? How did this go now? Y'all tried to, as soon as you tried to confront him, said tried to like he was approaching to, and he took off running. So was he running forward but had his arm behind him shooting at y'all? Was he running backwards and shooting at you all? Did he run some, then start shooting? How did this go? So they said that he pointed a gun and fired multiple rounds at CPD, according to CPD. And after he fired multiple rounds, then the police shot back and struck him in the shoulder. What? Y'all let this, okay, let's say what y'all saying is true. As a trained officer, ain't no way in hell he was supposed to be able to get off multiple rounds before y'all shot back. What we doing? So COPA is asking members of the public to come forward with any videos that they have of the shooting. The only available footage is from an overhead blue light camera that captured part of the pursuit. Anyone with info can contact COPA at COPAINFO@chicagocopa.org or call 1312-743-2672. That's interesting. And you do know that you can contact the police and be anonymous. Now, due to all the looting, a Chicago jeweler who had his store targeted by looters 2 times in the recent months said that more police are urgently needed. The owner of the Imperial Jewelry on Wabash Avenue armed himself with a gun and bulletproof vest, telling looters to stay out because all of the jewelry was locked in a safe. Them dudes don't care nothing about your jewelry being locked in the safe. You ain't see that man trying to put that ATM machine on a bus? Oh, they will find a way of make one, baby. People have pop safe plenty of times. People pop safe every day. So, this man being hailed as a tough guy because he's standing up for his own. But he says that it's not from him being a tough guy. It's just that he fears for his safety if the looting continues, which is understandable. Which is definitely understandable. So let's go a little bit into switch over to the George Floyd case with these officers. Y'all know that they started to turn on each other, right? They want separate trials because they feel like at least one of them is gonna go down and take a hard hit. And they like, we don't want the jury to, you know, look at all our cases at once. We don't want them to look at us as a whole. But I thought that's how y'all ran. So first y'all was all gang when he had his knee on that man's neck. Right, George was hollering that he couldn't breathe. Y'all was gang then. But now that the mess then hit the fan, y'all trying to separate. I mean, y'all just as bad as the show on 48 Hours. Everybody come in all tough until the reality of the situation they hit in, settled in, and now you're crying, you're snitching. Oh my God. So, one of the officers said, that he was just trying to control the crowd and make sure that the crowd was not going to intervene with between the officer and George Floyd. So he was just trying to keep an angry crowd away, and that he trusted his fellow officers to do the right thing. Now, yeah, everybody is individually responsible for doing what they are supposed to do. You should be able to trust an adult, a trained mind, to do what they are supposed to do. But sometimes, people go off into another little lane. And in that case, when it's a situation where this is going to affect us as a whole, and you see that each part is not playing their position correctly, then as a teammate, you're supposed to try to prevent it. You're supposed to say something. Now, if that other teammate gives you the middle finger and continues to do what they're going to do, then that part is on them. But don't just sit back idly and go with the flow, and then now that there's trouble behind it, now y'all want to separate. Now everybody pointing fingers. They said that this man, when he was talking about George Floyd, that he did not become emotional or remorseful. They said that any sign of concern when he was speaking was in regards to his fellow, teammate, his fellow boys in blue. But at the same time, he's trying to separate himself from the heaviness of the penalty that is to come. So he referred to himself as a human traffic cone in an interview, and his body cam footage showed that he was aggressive with the onlookers. So you wasn't aggressive with George Floyd, but your own camera footage shows that you were aggressive with the people. Now they weren't even under arrest. Nobody called you about them. And then as he talked and just gave his little position on the whole situation, later in the interview, he said that when he found out that Floyd died, his heart sank. When they asked him if he would have done anything differently, he said, I'm under the belief that you can always do something differently on every single call. I guess I would have been more observant toward Floyd. We passed the stage of guessing. Based on everything that happened, you should have a little more knowledge of. You guess you would have been more observant toward Floyd. So are you saying that, because you didn't say that you guess you would have told your fellow officer to get his knee off of this man's neck? Would you just have been more observant to see at what point he started to turn blue? And then tell your partner, give him a little tap like, okay, he fading out now, let him breathe. In what way would your observation had saved this man's life or attributed to saving this man's life? That's what I would like to know. You know, just the fact that you are a person, let's put aside the fact that you are a cop, you are a person. Put yourself in that man's shoes and then answer the question about what you would have done differently. See it from another perspective. You know, and of course, they're not giving the other police officers the same charges as they're giving Derek, but everybody needs to be held accountable. Thankfully, we're pushing for police reform in some places and defunding of the police in others. Nevertheless, you know, sometimes towers fall and things come out because it's a sign that it's the wrong vibrational level. That these actions are not truly getting you the effects and the results that you want them to want to get. So certain things start to come out and be exposed so that a change can be made. No, it's unfortunate that the police, well, I heard of a reputation of the police being the good guys. And it's like, it's hard to tell these days. Regardless of what side you're on, regardless of where you come from, regardless of where you're going, one thing that we have in common is that it's the flesh, the humanity of it all. Even when being in a state of authority, you being in a state of authority does not mean that you look down and demean others who are not on your level. Real royal, real power don't even have to treat people like that. Don't have to treat people like that. You can still be important and not have to treat somebody as though they're less than you. People remember how you treated them. And then when you have situations where these babies are dying, innocent people are being shot and killed, and the people don't want to come and participate and cooperate with you. All of us have some healing and some reconditioning that we need to continuously work on. You have to be open to change. This way of handling situations with the resident is not working. It's not giving you the results that you are intending to have. And to lead a whole nation or lead a whole city with the iron fist and fear, that's going to backfire. It's already backfired, but it's going to continue to backfire. Instead, try showing the people that, instead, try taking accountability. And making obvious changes in the way that you interact with people. Let it be consistent. There will be people who say, no, we feel like this is a trick. You're just trying to be nice to me or respectful to me because of whatever, but you don't end up putting me in the bag behind it. No. Build some consistency so that you can start to rebuild trust in the areas that you have to work with and say, hey, yes, we as a whole with CPD be on some bullshit, have abused our power, have engaged in police brutality among the people, and not everybody has been guilty. Yes, we have done that. Start off with that. Start off with that. I understand that y'all selves are stressed out and traumatized. I love watching these little Chicago PD. You can't tell me nothing about some Hank Boyd and some they whole little crew. Love me some Hank Boyd. And if by watching that is giving any inkling or indication of what cops go through in the day-to-day, these police officers are traumatized as well. Everybody walking around here with some type of form of PTSD. We need to try to get a greater understanding of where that other person is coming from as well. What we feel and what we go through matters. But we have to learn how to share this little space down here. We have to find some type of balance. And it's not a thing of allowing criminals to just run wild and take over. Because we don't want that mess. We don't want to have to be plagued by the lifestyle of the Chiracians. But at the same time, we all have to understand that everybody has their own bag of things that they are going through. And just because you feel like your bag might be heavier, it does not give you the right to just spread that negativity throughout the rest of the world. Spread that misery because you're miserable. Everybody's energy impacts the other. So while we're pointing fingers, let's continue to work on the self. Because as we start to heal and recondition and elevate within ourselves, we're going to start to see some changes. So let's all do our little part. This doesn't have to be this way. All of this is coming down to what? How people are being treated. Something so simple, yet so powerful. Be mindful of how you are treating others. Learn how to check yourself and whatever that you're going through so that you are not spreading that misery to others. We love y'all here at the Shy Love Radio Show, Pop Radio Worldwide, iHeartRadio, and Spotify Premium. Until next time, love.